see no competition. It ain't no contest. You ain't in discussion. Not even a prospect. Yeah, you better go and get to meditating. Yeah, we coming for you, no hesitation. Might as well call the league up. Tell them put the trophy on reservation. Been going up, that's elevation. No holding back, no preservation. Treat off season like postseason. No days off, this dedication.
Game time, don't expect us to play nice. We got plans to take every record home. One thing you should know is how to.
Yeah, you better go and start meditating. Yeah, we coming for you, no hesitation. Look. Yeah, no holding back, no preservation, no off days, this dedication. Game time, get out the way, we coming through. Check the hang time, been on top, ain't nothing new. A lot of talk, whole lot of noise, but ain't cutting through. Word on roll, you got a couple L's, you'll have another soon, don't sweat. Whole lot of sacrifice, no regrets. Whole lot of dubs, but ain't done yet. Say you the one, but ain't one yet. Running the game, ain't take one step. Hold up. Yeah, all emotions aside. There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. How you gon' play when the game on the line?
Game time, don't expect us to play nice. We got plans to take every record home. One thing you should know is how to.
Hello everybody, welcome to RaceSpotTV and welcome to Season 8 of the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Championship. We're here to finalise the first half of the season here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, Montreal in Canada, and what a fantastic campaign we've had so far. Everybody's been looking forward to this round though, because this circuit is so easy to underestimate, and I tell you what, the drivers have got a big challenge ahead of themselves tonight in the two classes that we usually have here in this championship. My name is Chaz Draycott, and I'm delighted to say that alongside me in the commentary box for the very first time is the wonderful Zach Sweeney, standing in for Peter Mackay this week. Zach, welcome to the booth, welcome to the championship. How do you reckon this is going to pan out this evening, mate?
Yeah, it should be absolutely fantastic. Of course, it's a pleasure to finally work alongside. We've known each other for a couple of years now, but we finally get to do it. And what a round to jump in on as well. The Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, of course, is very tight, very twisty, very technical, but very fast and flowing at the same time. So I think for both of our cars and all of our drivers, it should be a very tricky one, but at the end, quite a rewarding one as well.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. Once you get a lap together around this circuit, it's so enjoyable and really rewarding. That's definitely the word for this place. This is how the calendar looks for this season. As I said, we're just finishing the first half of the season. Next time out, we've got our first endurance race of the campaign with Le Mans at the 24-hour layout. Can't wait for that. And then we have an endurance race to end the season at Silverstone. But before that, we go to Japan and then back over to the United States with Fuji and Circuit of the Americas in between as well. A wonderful star-studded calendar for this championship. They always do a really good job of the calendars and making it entertaining throughout. Drew Fletcher currently leads the AM Championship standings. He's got a healthy 12-point lead over Amric Sachdev and Oliver Carwadine, with Heinz Meyer and Fausto Pinto tied on 47 points. Next up is Ralph Meyer ahead of Alex Owen, but it's still close between himself, Danny Jones, Andrew Shepard and Alex Johns, who rounds out the top 10. In the pro standings, it's Mark Baxter Jones that's at the top of the proceedings now with 58 points, only 4 ahead of Johnny Cullen, who is then only 2 ahead of Chris Byram. Johnny Elia is next up in 4th place with Lewis Archer in 5th. Rob Sharp in 6th position, only 1 point ahead of Stephen Haley. Christian Saruta and Rob Miller also tied on points. It's remarkably close all the way through the field. And that's what makes it an exciting championship, isn't it, Zach? When you never know who's going to be at the top of the table come the end of a race meeting.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you want. The uncertainty, the unpredictability. That's why we love racing. That's why we go motorsport racing all the time, is because we have that sense of uncertainty. Even when you've got a driver that maybe is a step or two above the rest in terms of pace, reliability, issues, consistency, surprises along the way can always throw a spanner into the works. And when you match that with an incredibly competitive field like the one we've got here today, it is fantastic. So let's bring it on.
Absolutely. This is Drew Fletcher, the current AM Championship leader in the Series 1 racing machine, car number 26. The AM drivers, for those of you that haven't seen the series before, will be in this gorgeous Porsche 911 992 GT3R, the GT3 specification, the latest GT3 car from Porsche. It's a wonderful looking, wonderful sounding machine, very stable platform for a GT3 car, and Porsche once again knocking it out of the park with an incredible racing machine. And in the Pro class, we have drivers in the excellently pretty Porsche 963 hypercar. They will be out in just a few minutes' time, because while this 25-minute qualifying session goes on, they split it manually between the AMs going out on their own and then the pros a little bit later. So we've got this fantastic flat six to listen to for now, Zach, as we go on board with Drew Fletcher for a lap of this incredible circuit.
Yeah, it really is. Well, of course, to give you a tour of what is a fantastic circuit here at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Very tight and twisty chicane to start it off. Decent overtaking opportunity if you're able to, but the noise, these Porsches are both aesthetically very pretty, but also the audio that you get from them is fantastic as well. I think qualifying here, though, is going to be incredibly important. Look at how close the walls are, particularly, obviously, for the AMs, but also especially in the pros. It's going to be vitally important to hook up what is a very tricky lap.
Yeah, definitely, and there's a few real pinch points as well where you have to be so careful of incident, especially as you come out of that first sector, you know. I mean, we've seen turns 3 and 4, the little chicane, but as you go around the long sweeping turn 5 into the second chicane, I'm sure between the two of us, Zach, we've seen many pile-ups in sim racing through there before, because it's blind as you go around, isn't it?
It's interesting, to put it bluntly. When it comes, obviously, won't affect this race, but other races in sim racing that are affected by rain, that's when it gets particularly interesting. Because not only are you blind by the corner, also the spray and the lack of grip. It's, fun. So if there's any shenanigans at the front of the field going into that particular corner on lap 1, expect some absolute carnage. And then also, more specifically, coming into this very last chicane, well, this will be something because of just how huge these anti-cut curbs are on the inside, and then, of course, the Wall of Champions to your right.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to see some of the pros in the Porsche 963 class have some issues over that chicane tonight. All it takes is one tiny bit of misjudgment and you'll be over the curbs and into the Wall of Champions. Heinz Mayer currently fastest. We just saw Drew Fletcher there go 13 thousandths of a second slower, so not even the blink of an eye can separate the two of them at the moment. On board with Amrik Sashdev here. He committed to the corner a little bit early as Oliver Carwadine goes to the top now with a 136.7, and he is very quickly displaced by Fausto Pinto, a 136.544. What does Amrik Sashdev do? He crosses the line with a 138.176, puts him 10th in class at the moment. Andrew Shepard next up in the wonderful Scuderia Chicken House car. He keeps it in the middle of the road and then swoops over to the right for turn 1. Just opens it up that slight bit. He ends up on the times in... well, no valid lap, actually. And again, that's another thing around here, Zach, isn't it, that's easy to fall foul of, is the off-tracks and the incident points.
Yeah, the margin for error is very slim, but that doesn't mean there isn't those tricky bits of runoff that can very easily catch you out. A lot of high-speed chicanes where the curbs invite you to take them, but then obviously the white line's like, no, you don't. If you go over them too much, you are getting yourself a 1x, mate, and that's going to very quickly invalidate your lap. So that's going to be something, particularly in qualifying, to look out for, because they've only got, 12 minutes to put in a competitive lap time, and when you're running a minute and a half a lap, that doesn't really give you too much time to play with. And when you want to bed yourself into a session, I always say you want to start with putting down a lap. Doesn't need to be the lap, just a lap. Foundation, something that you can put down and fall back on. Particularly at a circuit as difficult as this, you need something on the board to show for this qualifying session.
Yeah, definitely, because you can always take the chance that some of your competitors might not get a valid lap on the board at all. Oliver Carwadine was just coming out of the final corner there and has slowed to pretty much a halt, which was an odd one. Maybe just invalidated it, wants to reset the car into the pit lane, get fresh rubber. He'll have more fuel on board, but still, it's not going to make a massive difference if they've only done 2 or 3 laps. Here's Ryan Penny, previous AM champion of the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Championship. He heads into the chicane once more, tidy over the curbs. You could hear the revs spike a little bit, and then that inside rear wheel really bit down and the revs started to drop. He keeps it over to the right-hand side. Car 99 crosses the line with a 136.871. That puts him 3rd quickest at the moment, less than 0.4 of a second off Fausto Pinto. But again, we never know who's going to be on pole position in this class. The times are so tight, less than half a second in between all the top 5.
And when you think about it, I mean, in retrospect, maybe it is quite a lot, but when it's a circuit that does take a lot of commitment and really is a driver's circuit, you can, just by taking one sequence a little bit better, very quickly, because of the momentum that you carry, you can very quickly gain a tenth and a half, even 2 tenths. And in a field as competitive as this, that could be, you know, jumping up a row or two on the grid. So you really have to be watching out and not lose faith too much, because if you are able to hook up that lap, you are going to be very nicely set for what is going to be a 40-minute race coming up just after. And with track position so key, if you can hook up a lap in qualifying just by carrying that bit more momentum, you should be absolutely fine. Let's see what Drew Fletcher can do across the line as well. At the moment, half a second off. Really nothing in it whatsoever.
No, he didn't improve there, unfortunately. He only needs to gain 13 thousandths of a second to move up a spot on the grid for the current session. Ryan Penny, third fastest at the moment. Different livery for Ryan tonight. Usually he's running in a sort of white and orange colour scheme from what I remember, but he used to run the Porsche Centre Chester colours. Of course, they are the sponsor of the championship as well, so thanks to Carl Hazelton and everybody at Porsche Centre Chester for their support of the series. But Ryan running this lovely black and silver design this time round, still with the usual yellow stripe down the middle. He actually owns a Porsche 911 GT3 and 992 in that yellow, so he always has the sort of same highlights as his road-going car. He's crossed the line, still third fastest, and goes on to another quick lap. But great stuff by Fausto Pinto at this moment in time. Here's Oliver Carwadine, was the winner of the first race of the season in the AM class. Currently sits third, 15 points off Drew Fletcher. Yeah, I remember he had a nightmare time actually last time out at Spa, so that's going to have hurt his chances. But it's all about how you bounce back from a bad time, isn't it, Zach? You've got to really be sort of reminding yourself that people don't look at the bad moment, they look at how you come back from it.
Exactly. I mean, it's not so much not having the bad moment, it's how you recover from it, how you turn a bad day into a bit of a meh day. And that's what crafts a champion. Everyone is going to take a stumble back, but it's if you take one step back and then take 2 steps forward, or if you just continue that decline all the way down, because it is an easy sort of trap to fall into. It's immediately about just, you know, learning from it, twisting back, going into the next race with a fresh mind, and then using that momentum to carry you forward. And don't forget as well, only 7 of the 8 rounds will count to the overall championship. So you, even in that sense, do have a bit of a fallback. So one bad round is definitely not something to sort of be too disheartened about, provided you don't make the same mistake again.
Yeah, that's the thing. You need to focus on the positives that you can draw from it, and it's just use it as a lesson. Use it as a learning experience and move by and see what you can do following on from it. But this is certainly a circuit where confidence is key. You've got so many high commitment corners and, like you said before, very flowing sections where you really need to trust in the momentum of the car and the downforce of the car as well. That was Ryan Penny crossing the line. Alistair Hatcher coming into the pits. The Haribo Bear of Danny Jones making his way down the back straight. Danny down in 8th place at the minute. We usually see him a little bit higher than that in qualifying, so he's not having the easiest of days so far. Hard onto the brakes into the chicane, and again, just hopping and skipping over the curbs. I really don't think that the 963s are going to be as comfortable doing that, do you, Zach?
No. That is a firm way to say see you later, mate, and either find yourself into the barrier or probably backwards into the pit lane, I'd imagine. It's not even like the GT3s are very curb tolerant. They're just more curb tolerant than the 963s will be. Obviously, they rely very heavily on just being nice, low to the ground to maximize, obviously, the low pressure air trapped underneath the car, but also just that ride height to keep it as sleek as possible to carve its way through the air. Very stiff suspension as well, or at the very least stiffer than what the GT3s will do. And when you've got very high curbs like that, it's so easy just to effectively become like a skateboard going over a rail effectively. All 4 wheels lift up, the car bottoms out, and then you find yourself going for a very, very severe spin. And that's what we talk about with the margin for error. It's why I was a little bit taken aback to see the 963s were coming here to the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, but it's an interesting choice, but they've got to be challenged at some point. They are the pros for a reason. Absolutely.
It's a fantastic dynamic as well, having the 2 different cars per class that we've not seen before in the championship. It's always been the same car despite what class people were in, so we've got this big differentiator between the 2. So now you have to think about traffic in this championship, not just from an on-paper performance standpoint, but also the fact that the 963s are so much quicker than the 992s. That's how qualifying looks then for the AM class, and it's Fausto Pinto who will take pole position. Very well done to Fausto. Oliver Carwadine will join him on the front row, with Ryan Penny and Heinz Mayer on row 2. Drew Fletcher, championship leader, starting in 5th place with Andrew Shepherd alongside him, and then it's going to be Danny Jones and Alex Johns on row 4, with Alistair Hatcher and Kim Such rounding out the top 10 drivers in the session. Next up is Ralph Mayer alongside Amrik Sashdev on row 6, followed by Alex Owen and the Triple Eight of Mark Elvin, with Andy Marston finishing the 15 cars that we're going to have in the AM class for tonight. There's a queue at the end of the pit lane now, Zach, as the 963s wait to make their way out. The flying bogey, as Peter and I call him, at the front. Christian Saruta, certainly a driver to watch at a track like this. It's just, like I say, such a circuit that it demands confidence from you, doesn't it? You have to be switched on to it here, and it's not somewhere that you can get away with not practicing for.
No, it really isn't. That's a lesson I've learned a lot. I've usually had the mindset of, if I'm going for a sim race, I'll turn up, qualifying is my practice, and then I very much get what's coming to me when it comes to the race. Here at Montreal, you really do have to be switched on. In some cases, it's almost sort of like a rally stage in the same concentration demands of the circuit. You've got to be switched on. And you're right when it comes to confidence as well. You've got to know your own abilities. You've got to know the machine that's underneath you as well, and you've got to be in sync with each other, because the moment that you sort of start to doubt, that you go into a corner a little bit unsure, maybe take 1 or 2 extra stabs at the steering wheel, or a little bit tentative on the brakes, or even the throttle response, that's then when the mistakes start to creep in. You're better off going into a corner 100% committed than you are going in 50-50.
Yeah, definitely, and this is a car that really punishes indecisiveness and lack of commitment, because it can be so twitchy. It's one of those race cars where it's absolutely on rails everywhere, like it's some sort of scale electric car just floating around the circuit with ease. But until it reaches that final 1%, it just gives up so fast. It's never a small incident in one of these things, because they are going so quickly absolutely everywhere. This is Stephen Kershaw in the Barbie car, waiting to head out onto the circuit, still remaining in his pit box at the moment. Actually, you can see Paul Goffin in the rear view mirror. I think Lewis Archer has just sort of popped the car into the box behind him as well. As the session gets underway for the pro drivers, there in front is the Chris Akabusi tracksuit car of Chris Byram, very flamboyant design, let's say. Rob Miller also making his way out of the pit lane just in front of Stephen Kershaw there. And a lot of these guys now, they'll take the time to have a slow out lap, because you can catch traffic way more quickly in these things than you can in the 992s, can't you, Zach? So you have to make sure you've got a decent gap around you.
Yeah, that preparation is almost half the battle when it comes to putting in a decent hot lap. A driver that's quick but doesn't have great preparation will always suffer compared to a driver that's maybe slightly off the pace but takes the time to position themselves well on track, get the timing right, maybe if they want to tow down that back straight, to position themselves relative to the driver in front, get those brakes warmed up, get those tyres back into temperature, particularly in prototype cars as well. It's just that ever more important. So that preparation, the going slow before going fast enhances you to go from a good lap into a great lap.
Yeah, definitely. It's that final sort of 5%, isn't it? If you can just find where to unlock that and, you know, be realistic about how far you can push the car and what the car will give back to you. Once you've got that sort of relationship with it and you've practiced with it, you know where the bumps and lumps are on the circuit as well, where the car wants to catch you out and where you have to sort of be one step ahead. Once you figure out a circuit like this, in a car like this, it will feel absolutely unreal, and I'm excited to see what sort of pace the drivers give us from this session. We still wait to see the first times on the board, of course. We've just got the outlaps being completed right now. We remain on board with Stephen Kershaw. He's leaving a bit of a gap to Rob Miller, or I say that, he was, and he's sort of closing up and backing off again, waiting for Rob to get going. And it'll be a launch and a slingshot out of this final chicane. Again, nowhere near those huge sausage curbs. And Stephen Kershaw gets on the gas. And a fantastic racket being made by the Porsche 963. And it's just going to feel like sped up footage compared to the 992s. It's the fact that, other than, well, I was just about to say they don't have to use all the lock in the world, but there are a lot of corners here where they're not going to use much lock at all, are they?
No, not really, because you can do a lot of the rotation just with sort of the brake pedal as such, just by pitching the car in. And that's what you want. It's similar to sort of how you'll drive a go-kart as such, in the sense that if you ride on board with a driver, say in a senior Rotax, they'll do the 10 degrees of steering maximum going into a corner. It's all on how they manipulate the car with the brake, and that's similar to what you want in here, because every time you turn the steering wheel, you slow the car down. So if you can go through every corner with the minimal amount of steering lock possible, then you should be absolutely golden. That's what's going to reward driving through the nice technical sections. But then, of course, when you get into a slightly tighter bit, like into this hairpin, the steering the steering columns and steering racks on these prototypes are very, very small. That's why you'll see Kershaw go, arms over each other to try and get that lock on, because the rotation at low speeds in hypercars is nowhere near as good as when they're going 150 mile an hour.
Yeah, it's incredible, the performance. I remember last time out at Spa, we were watching them go through Blanchimont, and the steering wheel was almost completely straight when they were going through there flat out. It's absolutely terrifying. And there's a smack and a half over the curbs there by Stephen Kershaw. First lap times coming through now. Johnny Cullen fastest at the moment with a 1:25.183. Rob Miller goes second quickest, just 9 thousandths of a second ahead of Christian Zaruta, with Johnny Elia in 4th place. Stephen Kershaw, who we ride on board with now, goes up to 7th. James Cummings just goes 8th. Paul Goffin completing the top 10 at the moment ahead of Chris Byram. There was a few cars backing off on the previous laps though, so expect those times to change very suddenly. We go on board now with Christian Zaruta, 3rd fastest at the moment, doing everything that he can to get back up to the top of the championship. He missed a round last time out at Spa though, and that's dropped him down to 8th in the championship. He's tied with Rob Miller at this present moment, but for the last few seasons he's either been champion or runner-up, so we know that he has got the pedigree to be right at the sharp end. And look at the speed through there. The commitment is unreal. Excellent to ride on board, and just see how stiff the car is, how much it bounces around. And Zaruta crosses the line with a 1:25.328, and that puts him 2nd quickest for now, Zach. Small improvement, but enough to do the job.
That's all you need as well. Every half a tenth of a second will help. Of course, Zaruta, the season 6 champion a couple of seasons ago, always one of the front runners. Of course, that week off last week definitely did put him on the back foot, but it's not going to hamper him because we've still got over half the season left to go. Rob Miller, very committed over the curbs, but maybe lost a little bit of momentum across the line. What's he been able to do? And that is going to be provisional pole by 0.4 of a second as well. That's a decent chunk of a margin to have going into the final 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was a really, really strong improvement there by Rob Miller. We haven't seen him take pole position so far this season, so he's certainly making an impression there with that lap time. Here is reigning champion Johnny Cullen. Nearly made an incredible strategy at Daytona work earlier on in the season with a 1-stop. That's something the drivers have to think about as well tonight, isn't it, Zach? They've got the limited amount of fuel in the cars that they can have from the start of the race, so they then have to plan out when they're going to pit. Sometimes they'll just run it until it runs on fumes though, won't they, and then just come in as late as possible.
Yeah, there's no designated pit window as such that they have to come in, so they can just run the fuel tank dry, put in whatever they need, and then go from there. It should be the fairly easy strategy, but yeah, with 40% fuel tank, they are going to be looking. Usually, they can run. If you look at them, sort of in in racing special events and things like that, they can run 45, 47 minutes. Times that by 0.4, you're probably looking at a fairly decent half distance of the race anyway. So they can come in, just put in what they need and go again. It's a fairly easy strategy, fairly uniform, but if you can save a little bit here and there, you can save yourself, tenths or even seconds in the pit lane, and that could be decisive on a circuit where track position is vital and pit strategy and maximizing circumstance is going to be so critical.
Yeah, definitely. Track position is going to be the talk of the night, I think, with these 963s. A bit of aero wash from them as well in some of the higher speed sections that will affect the cars behind them. You might even see a bit of that in the Porsche 992s as well in the GT3 class. We saw a lot of that at Monza as well, actually. Some big incidents when the 963s were overtaking the 992s, and the GT3 cars were just getting completely loose as soon as they'd gone past. Rob Sharp was a little bit loose into the hairpin there, just locking up that front right, just snatching a wheel slightly. Gets back on the power and flings itself out of the hairpin, and then launching the car down towards the final chicane once more. Lewis Archer improves, goes up to 5th fastest. Rob Sharp currently sat in 7th. Johnny Elia in 8th position, just behind him at this present moment. Championship leader Mark Baxter Jones down there in 10th position at the present moment as well. But again, it's that unpredictability here, Zach, of not knowing where anybody in the championship standings is going to be. They're not relative to their actual race positions as such.
No, absolutely not. I mean, Amrik Sashdev in the AM class as well was down on the 6th row of the grid, so it just goes to show that you're not invincible even if you are at the front of the championship, even if you are the expected front runners. Things can still go wrong. Speaking of Baxter Jones, he has just put himself into P7, little bit more representative, but the margin to pole, 0.8 of a second, that is a lot of time to find around a circuit like this, but yeah, with how close it is, a small improvement, and he's, if he even improves by 0.2, he's straight away up inside the top 5, and you can really do something with that.
Hats off to Steve Proudley as well, by the way, good friend of mine. He's actually spotting for Stephen Haley this evening, who is in the Porsche 963s, and he said actually they do need to fuel save tonight. He says they need to do 2.4 litres a lap to get a one-stop strategy out of the car, so it really is using a lot of fuel around here. I suppose there are a lot of long accelerating sectors, especially the back straight as well, down towards the final corner. So we are going to see people backing out of moves, I think, and just lingering that little bit to make sure that they don't use all the fuel in the world. So we'll see whether anybody can make that strategy work. Some of the drivers will opt for pace, though, and track position as opposed to that, because they have to think about traffic as well. Let's not forget that element of it, Zach. They've got these 992s that are circulating nowhere near as quickly. I mean, between the two classes, what sort of gap are we looking at, really? Probably about 10 to 11 seconds a lap in terms of the difference. So it's not going to be that long, actually, before they start lapping traffic even from the start of the race.
And when they do as well, it's quite a big grid of both classes. I think we're going to have 30 cars on track at once, which is a lot when it's nice and tight and twisty, and the room to find your way past. Traffic management is going to be very, very critical in this race, and it could prompt an early stop, or maybe just trying to save that bit more fuel so you can go a little bit later. And that's the thinking. Not only is it difficult enough to plan a strategy, but also then thinking on your feet and being dynamic with it, being proactive as opposed to reactive while you're out on the circuit, making sure that you're making the right decision within half a second. As, oh my goodness me, Johnny Elia nearly binning it off the exit of turn 8 there, I believe. Just getting a bit of a twitch, not too bad in of itself. But yeah, look out for strategy. It should be very, very interesting, because while it's only a 40-minute race, pit strategy will be incredibly important here, because it's going to be that much more difficult to overtake. You're going to need to do your overtakes while stationary in the pit lane.
Absolutely. The timer ticks down to 0, and the checkered flag will come out then for qualifying here in the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Championship at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Johnny Elia heads straight into the pit lane, doesn't complete the lap that he's on, and because it's not a sort of heat race format here on iRacing that cuts you off straight away, the guys have got a chance to at least finish the lap that they're on before it completely kicks him out, basically. Johnny Cullen now into the hairpin once again. He's only 80 thousandths of a second off the top spot. James Cummings there on the left-hand side, just staying out of the way for a moment. And Johnny flying up through the gears now, down towards the last chicane, and it's an amazing bit of circuit, this. It's terrifying how it feels so wide sometimes, but so narrow other times. It's certainly a strange sort of effect of the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve location. It's just how narrow the track can be at certain points. Cullen goes for the line, has to beat a 24.782, and he's just missed out on it. 12 thousandths of a second between the top pairing, and Rob Miller will take pole position here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, his first pole position in the championship. But boy, Johnny Cullen cut that one close, Zach. That was really good stuff.
He had to work for it, did Miller, didn't he? That was nail-biting stuff right at the end. Cullen, I mean, it was a great lap, but those are the margins that we're talking about. 12 thousandths of a second. To the human eye, that's absolutely nothing, but it was the decisive moment between starting on pole and starting alongside in P2. But still a lot that Johnny Cullen can do from there.
Yeah, definitely. He'll still be happy with the fact that he's not miles off at the end of the day. It's not a half-second difference to pole position. But great stuff for Rob Miller, his first pole position in the championship. And this is how they will line up on the grid then. Miller on pole, Cullen alongside him, with Christian Saruta and Stephen Haley on the second row. Stephen improving towards the end of the session there to be less than half a second off pole. James Cummings is next up in 5th place with Lewis Archer alongside him on the third row of the grid. We then have Rob Sharp and Johnny Johnny Elia on row 4. Mark Baxter-Jones, championship leader, will start in 9th place. He's amongst his 2 other teammates, by the way, Johnny Elia in 8th and Byron Crawford in 10th. Chris Byron will start 11th alongside the Barbie car of Stephen Kershaw in 12th. It's then David McRoberts in 13th, Stuart Clark in the Rusty's Roast Racing car in 14th, and Paul Goffin will line up 15th at the back of the Pro class. We then have Fausto Pinto on pole position in the AM class with Oliver Carwadine alongside him. Ryan Penny and Heinz Mayer make up row 2. Drew Fletcher, championship leader, starts 5th with Andrew Shepherd's Scuderia Chicken House car next to him. Then it's Danny Jones and Alex Johns in Roxy. Then we have Alistair Hatcher and Kim Such completing the top 10. Ralph Mayer and Amrit Sashdev complete row 6. Then it's Alex Owen alongside Rexy, Mark Elvin at the wheel of the 888, and then Andy Marston completing the 15 cars in the AM class and the 30 cars in our entire field. As Christian Saruta looping it there in the little warm-up session. But this is the thing now, Zach, from a qualifying session and even to a warm-up session and then a race session, despite them being mere moments apart, in the sim, the conditions can change quite drastically, can't they, and cause little moments like we've seen there.
Yeah, it's quite a big adjustment, particularly obviously in the hypercars as well, because you've got very, very fine margins. I mean, when you're doing the setup, it's, you know, decimals of a degree when it comes to changing the setup. Those are the margins that we're talking about. So even when it comes to the ambient track temp or anything like that, it can make a difference to how the car behaves. Warming up the tyres a little bit more, if the track temp is a little bit hotter, it can mean that they overheat a lot easier. It's easier to then overdrive the car. When I was racing in the Rocket Racing Star Formula 4 Esports Competition UK, that was one of the issues I faced in F4 machinery at Brands Hatch, was I was overworking the front right a lot because the track was that much hotter. And what it did, I just had absolutely no grip. And especially in downforce cars, that is exemplified more and more. And even in the GT3s, where you rely a little bit more with less aero on the mechanical grip by the tyres, if they start to overheat and wash out, you're going to be floating.
Yeah, that's the thing. Certain cars deal with it differently, don't they? They've got a different balance of mechanical grip versus aerodynamic grip, and the drivers have to consider that. With the versatility that they've got to carry through sim racing, that's one of the most beautiful things about sim racing. I mentioned this to Peter last time out as well, that you've got drivers here that are rapid in these cars, but they'll jump out of these cars into something completely different, like a touring car or a Formula Ford, and they'll be rapid in that as well. And having that versatility and that sort of muscle memory to go from one car to the next and get performance out of it is what makes these drivers so great. And I think that's what makes it so enjoyable to see different people in different series across sim racing as well. And we've obviously got these 2 cars on track now for the first time tonight, actually. The 992 GT3 car with the 963. And you can see the speed difference as well as they come out of the corner. It's like, honestly, that 963 has been fired out of a cannon in comparison, but the 992, no slouch whatsoever. We look here at Drew Fletcher, like I've mentioned, championship leader coming into this round of the series. It's just going to be a bit of damage limitation, I think, from 5th place, Zach, because he knows that he can't be right up there from the get-go unless there's an incident or something in front of him, and round here overtaking is difficult, so he's just going to have to take each lap as it comes here.
I mean, he's got a decent gap back to Sashdev in 2nd, which is, 8 points, 65 to 53, and he's starting 7 places ahead of him. So he's there in the top 5. He's got it all to lose, not too much to gain as such. So taking sort of that back foot going into T1, taking it nice and cautiously. If he gains places, great. If he stays where he is, great. If he falls back, it's not the end of the world. There's still things you can do as the race progresses. People will still make mistakes. It's all about keeping your nose out of trouble and making sure that you finish ahead or at the least not too far behind the relevant people, because that's all it is when it comes down to championship points. It's all relative. It doesn't matter if your rival wins the race as long as you're right behind them in 2nd, or even if you have a bad day, as long as they have a bad day as well. There's no net loss as such. So it's just about keeping your nose clean, staying out of trouble, and trying to not completely bury it in T1.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not an easy place to get it right first time. It's turn 1, especially with all the other cars around you as well. There's a lot of compensation going on in the first couple of laps of this race. It's going to be very nip and tuck. But you're absolutely right. It's all about relative performance, isn't it? You know, even if you and your championship rival are both having a bad night, you still need to remember that, I mean, if you're just together in the middle of the field, you're still not doing that bad a job. It's just that you're not as high up as you normally would be if you used to winning races. So, yeah, it's all down to relative scale. But we look here at James Cummings and Rob Miller flying through the final chicane. Love that angle. Really shows you the speed that they come through there at. And then across the start-finish line with the Salut Gilles written on the floor. And the legendary first couple of corners. Some of the most entertaining in motorsport, especially when James Cummings does that. But that just shows you how easy it is to do. And if you push too hard during the race, we're going to see people doing that a lot when they're trying to compensate for other drivers braking around them.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with traffic and things, you've got to be very reactive and almost predicting. Say if you're lapping a GT3 going into that corner, you know they're going to be braking a lot differently at different points, different speeds at the apex, and you've got to compensate for that. Be reactive as to what they're doing, but also just take that cautionary back step in. Also, being very careful of the car's position over the curbs, because sometimes if you absolutely clobber over them, the car's fine. If you just hit them at the wrong angle, ever so slightly on the wrong angle, you're then spat into the wall. So it's that millimeter tracking from perfection to binning into the barrier. So you have got to be really careful the balance of the car, and also especially in the GTPs going into T1 into T2. It's probably one of the slowest parts of the circuit, but in those cars, it's still taken at quite some considerable speeds.
Yeah, definitely. It's where the car's probably going to feel at its most cumbersome as well, except for maybe the hairpin towards the end of the lap. Like we said before, it's not their sort of forte or a small sort of tighter corners like that. Because of the downforce and the amazing aerodynamics of these machines, they really do suit high-speed flowing sections. So this track's got a bit of everything to throw at these Porsche 963s. But we look forward to round number 4 of the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Championship here on RaceSpotTV. Hope you're all enjoying the show so far and looking forward to a brilliant race. 1 40-minute feature race here with pit stops to be included as well. So it's not just a straightforward sprint. These drivers have got to crunch the numbers and do things on the fly. I know there's a few drivers in here that might have a spotter with them tonight, just to help them out with the strategy and keep an eye on proceedings. But we look forward to Rob Miller's first start from pole position here. Do you reckon that in the opening laps here, Zach, that he's going to be able to hold on to that? Because we know that Cullen is quick out of the gate.
Yeah, he'll want to. It's going to be important too, with track position being so important, but let's find out.
Absolutely, it's Zaruta and Haley on the second row of the grid as well. They're not going to let them get away with anything. And straight out the final corner, Rob Miller has already gone. He's absolutely played that one to perfection. He's got a decent car and a half length over Johnny Cullen, and Christian Zaruta already down the inside into the first corner. Cullen still has a bit of an overlap. Zaruta wants to give him the space. They nearly make contact through turn 2. Zaruta's going to use the momentum on the outside though, and he's going to carry it and go into second position. Moves across the road to say, look, I'm going to defend. Beautiful stuff. Then we have the AM class getting going, and Drew Fletcher's already up to third position somehow. Fausto Pinto leading the way. It says that Andy Marston's at the front. No, he's just teleported to the back now. Fausto Pinto leads it. Carwadine second. Drew Fletcher third. I don't think Heinz Mayer's had a good start from his side of the grid at all, because Andrew Shepherd's gone backwards with him.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see as to what happened there, but a great start then for Drew Fletcher. The optimal start for him from 5th place on the grid, moving up 2 places. A lot he can do from here. A nice foothold going into this race and some good momentum as well. He's going to be feeling the adrenaline of that, the hype from that, the dopamine from gaining 2 positions, filled with confidence and then able to push forward. Same too in the pros with Christian Zaruta moving his way past Johnny Cullen. A lot he can do. Now, once they start getting settled into the race, the carnage of the first lap hopefully is for the most part settled down. Now it's a case of head down, focus forwards.
I've just noticed as well that Ryan Penny has dropped way down in the AM class, so I'm not sure if there was some drama for him coming out of the final chicane or something, which is what's caught up that side of the grid. But Ryan Penny showing us 15th at the moment, unfortunately, so I'm not quite sure about that one. We look here at James Cummings with Lewis Archer just in front of him there. The 2 of them running 5th and 6th at the moment, hoping to chase Stephen Haley. Behind them, they've got Rob Sharp, championship leader Mark Baxter-Jones, and Byron Crawford completing the top 10 drivers at the minute. Oh, a little bit of understeer there, to say the least, from Johnny Ely. A little bit of oversteer, to say the least, from James Cummings on the exit. It's not often that you see these cars going sideways and getting saved. Like I said before, they're like Scalextric machines. They're just glued to the road until they're not. And it's never a sort of a soft slide like you get in a Porsche Cup car. It's always just a massive spit off of oversteer and they go spearing into a barrier. So strange to see Cummings able to control the car like that, but hats off to him.
Yeah, fair play. Car control is immense if you're able to hang on to that. And yeah, you're right, it's all or nothing in these cars with how stiff they are. Once it's gone and you try and correct it, it just snaps back at you. On board then with Johnny Elia as he tries to move his way past Cummings and up inside the top 6 in the slipstream. A little bit of a run, maybe a heavy look into the hairpin. Is going to try it, but not enough heading into the hairpin. You're better off biding your time, waiting for a mistake just like that, taking a nice tight line, and then putting your foot down and finding your way through.
Yeah, James Cummings just feeling the pressure there, maybe just snatching a break on his way into the hairpin. Nothing too bad, though. Only one place for now as the race stands. It's a bigger picture, though. It's a long race. Even 40 minutes. Rob Miller still leading Christian Tsuruta. And it's great to see for Christian as well that he hasn't sort of overtaken Johnny Cullen and been sort of reeled back in and held back by him. He's got past him and he's gone, right, let's go for it. And he's looking to move forward. Drew Fletcher looking to move forward as well. Oh, giving a bit of a kiss to championship rival Oliver Carwadine there out of the final hairpin. Scary moment for them. These two had a great ding-dong at Daytona at the start of the season, and then Drew, very sportsmanlike, gave the position back after there was contact, and Oliver Carwadine took his first win of the season. They remain side by side now down into the chicane. If Drew can hang it around the outside here, he'll have the inside for the second part, but it's not something we usually see people trying to do. So this is one of the smallest chicanes in the world when you're in a race car, but still, he tucks in behind him. He's just got to think about what on earth Heinz Mayer could do from there. Heinz took his first ever sim racing win earlier in the season at Monza, and he's going to be hungry for more.
Yeah, exactly. It's addictive almost. Once you've got one, you just want to get the ball rolling and you want to get more and more and more, because it is the dopamine, the adrenaline rush that you get, the happiness that you get from winning a sim race, even if it's just an officials, but of course doing it in a competitive championship as well. It just fills you with that competitive spirit to go for more. And once you, as a racing driver, you're third place in a 3-car train, all you see is opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to just take each little win, but also try and get more from them and build on it. Drew Fletcher now fallen back from Carwadine a little bit. He had a little look down the inside there, and I think if anything he's actually compromised himself, and he's going to be under attack very soon. As there's big changes near the front. Lewis Archer and Stephen Haley have just both dropped places. Rob Miller has lost the lead to Christian Tsuruta as well, so there's been some big changes in the pro class. And here is the result as Rob Sharp bouncing off the side of, I believe that was Johnny Elia. Oh, dearie me. Rob Sharp now trying to rejoin Paul Goffin there as well. I don't think he knew that Paul was still coming, unfortunately. But yeah, Rob Miller has lost the race lead, and he's even behind Johnny Cullen right now. Maybe he had a slowdown penalty, Zach, because that's something where you need to think about with that final chicane, isn't it?
Yeah, so easy to cut with sort of just the commitment that you need. It's very one line, and if you wash out of that ever so slightly, particularly in the 963s as well, it's easy just to bail out and take the slowdown sometimes, because that's less of a punishment. But even half a second will slow you down, and I think you have to serve it before the end of the lap as well, if memory serves me correctly. So even if you get it on the final corner, you have to be very quick. This is what happened to James Cummings, and well, yeah, spin. Lucky not to hit the barrier, but not at all where you want to be losing the car.
No, and we saw him do that actually just in the warm-up beforehand, didn't we? Rob Sharp just down the inside of the 11/10ths machine. I'm pretty sure it was Johnny Elia, and he bounces off the side, thinks the entire field's gone through, and good awareness there from Paul Goffin. There is Rob Miller slowing down, and then look, Stephen Haley is over on the right-hand side, so they've both overtaken Stephen at this point. As there was actually bodywork. No, sorry, it was Lewis Archer. I do apologise, not Rob Miller. It was Lewis Archer that's lost his rear wing. He's hit the wall of champions, and then these guys have had this little squabble on their way down there. It was actually Mark Baxter Jones that he bounced off the side of as well. So I'll continue correcting myself till the cows come home. Lewis Archer just over that curb, and Stephen Haley very unlucky. And wow, great awareness there actually from Elia to get through that.
Yeah, it takes sort of just some very good forward thinking, very quick reactions as well. It's remarkable sometimes, but back to the live action. And this is what happens when you're trying to struggle with no rear wing. Traffic management at its finest, with the rest of the 963 field finding their way past the 46, who is very much crawling his way back to pit lane. At the slow speed, he's not looking too bad, but those traction zones and obviously the quick speed stuff as well, you've got to be so tentative with the car, because if you try and put the power down with no rear wing, you are going absolutely nowhere. Well, you're going somewhere. It's round and facing the wrong way. You've got to be so careful. The pinch point as well, especially at a tight circuit like this. They're all trying to go this way, that way, forwards and back. James Cummings as well trying to find his way through. It's a nightmare, both for the overtakers and then, of course, for the 46 that is stranded, just trying to not get in anyone's way.
Yeah, he's still not backing out of any of this, is he? I don't think he quite realises that the car is as damaged as it is. Maybe it looks worse than it actually feels, but maybe. I think it was it David McRoberts that's just gone over the chicane there in the number 12 car. He just had to bail out and go straight on. But yeah, Lewis Archer now in what Peter would call the GT3 touring spec of the 963, and he'll have a meatball flag for that, the black and orange flag that says you need to come in and get repairs, and he has inevitably dived into the pit lane. But great action from the 963s. It's always very touring car-esque in the 963s. These guys don't give each other a single inch, and it's fantastically close action. But it's Christian Saruta that leads the way now from Johnny Cullen and then Rob Miller. This is the battle between Rob Sharp and Paul Goffin. Paul in the homage to the gorgeous Newman Porsches of days gone by, with Rob Sharp in his always pretty Orberis racing machine. Rob's liveries have been beautiful from the get-go in this championship, and he continues to fly the flag for his brand. He's just trying to fill the mirrors at the moment and maybe not focus on the fact that David McRoberts is still there behind them, putting some pressure on. 2 11/10 cars in the top 5 at the moment, Johnny Elia and Mark Baxter-Jones. It's still Fausto Pinto leading the way in the AM class at the moment, though. Zach, he's done a great job to hold that lead from the start, and the gap's getting bigger back to Carwadine.
Yeah, it is. It's a nice sort of foothold to have. 1.7 seconds means that Pinto, he's not going to be feeling the pressure too much, but also it's not a big enough gap that he can start getting complacent and feel safe. It's very easy to be led into a false sense of security when you're not really under much pressure. Pinto, one small mistake from him, and Carwadine is immediately hammering his case, immediately on the back, immediately putting pressure on. So Pinto, while yes, he's not feeling any physical pressure, the psychological pressure of seeing Carwadine in his rearview mirror is certainly there, and well, will continue to be there, I'm sure, for the next 31 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely will be. Nearly a quarter of the way through the race already. I'm not quite sure where that's gone, to be honest. But you mentioned there the physical pressure compared to the mental pressure, and it works both ways, doesn't it? If you're a car that's trying to chase somebody down, it can often be more of a sort of carrot on the end of a stick when you're trying to visually chase the car in front and you can see the target as opposed to just chasing numbers. But it works the other way around as well. If you're trying to stay away from somebody and all you're able to do is look at the numbers rather than see them in the mirror, it can be so much more difficult when it's the other way around. When you see them behind you, you know what the gap is. So drivers have to try not to focus on that. We've got traffic now for the 963s, and well, I mean, it looks busy already, and we've only seen them doing it for about 2 corners. It's a terrifying prospect with the speed difference here.
Yeah, for both parties, both those in the Porsches and, of course, those in... Oh, well, they're all in Porsches, aren't they?
The Porsches.
Those in the GTPs and... Well, no, I'm not wrong, am I?
No, not at all.
Those in the Porsches, I think we did have a fight for lead momentarily as well, is because Cullen, Saruta and Miller here battling as they go either side of the GT3.
Where's Cullen gone? Cullen has disappeared up the road here, actually. Saruta is a long way, 4 seconds back from him, as into the pits goes Saruta. He decides to pit now, get out of the traffic, get out of the hassle. But my goodness me, Johnny Cullen has disappeared from the other two. He had a 5.2 second lead by the time that Saruta came into the pits, and this is why Saruta flashing the lights. He's got a battle in front. That's Danny Jones. Who was he overtaken? Oh my goodness me, that was Drew Fletcher. That was championship leader Drew Fletcher that he's had contact with. I think Drew had a slowdown penalty of sorts. I think Drew gets overtaken by Danny and then wants to cut over to the right to get out of the way, and oh goodness me, that's a horrific racing miscommunication there. And it does happen though, doesn't it, Zach? Because sometimes classes want to proactively get out of the way, and other times they want to sit on their own line. I think Drew was overtaken by Danny and just thought, quick, jump to the inside, get it off the racing line, and bang.
Yeah, unfortunately that's no one else to blame than Fletcher for that one. It's an unfortunate mistake, but you've got to be predictable. While, yes, it is the faster car's job to overtake safely, you cannot be acting unpredictable like that. There was no way of course, Saruta was going to predict that was going to happen as quick as it did. He had no time to react there, as it gets very busy, particularly into this hairpin heavy braking zone, sending it 3 wide. Unfortunate for Fletcher as he darted to the right-hand side, but at the end of the day, you've just got to keep it on your line. Maybe he didn't know there was the GTB trying to lap him. So many different ways that it can go, but unfortunately it's ended in disaster for both of them.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it can very quickly turn into a disaster for these 963s there. As White Van Gaming in the chat, to be fair, great minds think alike, mate, because all I saw there was the way that car hit the wall. I thought Robert Kubica, because it was a very similar angle in which he went into the wall and then nearly went back over to the other side. It was on Drew to go over to the left there once he'd been hit, but yeah, sickening impact. Luckily only just in the sim, but yeah, not an ideal situation for either party involved there as the battles continue on. We've got Stephen Kershaw in the Barbie car just ahead of Byron Crawford. And then even behind those guys as well, more 963s piling in. Stuart Clark in the mix too as James Cummings wants to get through. It's all so close as James has to go down the inside. I don't think he was ready for them to be braking that early there. That's Stuart Clark in there in the Rusty Roast racing machine. Wow, very, very close stuff. And look at the way they're all darting around. I'm not sure about you, Zach, but I'd rather that the GT3s at this point would just hold their line, and it's the 963s that have got to do the work to get around them.
There's a reason I'm in the commentary booth, and it's because I could absolutely categorically not do any of this whatsoever. These guys are insane with how quick they react. There's the 112, of course. Byron Crawford looking to the outside of Kershaw, however, goes way too wide through the hairpin. Has caused a bit of a Constantina effect. James Cummings versus Stuart Clark, as it is just absolute carnage. A tight circuit like this with, of course, the 992s battling their way with each other with a very hotly contested grid themselves. They don't want to let up in their respective battles. And then, of course, you've got the 963s that all want to battle with each other as well. There's the 23 of Stuart Clark to the inside of the chicane. That's a fairly easy affair because trying to go around the outside of that one, particularly in a hypercar, is a big, big no-no. But once they're clear, hopefully, it should be okay, at least for a lap or two. But as the race goes on and they spread out more and more, you don't get, one big load of traffic and then clear air. You just get loads of little pockets of traffic. So it's going to be even more difficult and a constant mountain for these guys to have to climb.
Yeah, it's a consistent stream of traffic after a certain point in the race, and you can see there Stuart Clark getting held up behind Heinz Mayer. James Cummings and Rob Sharp want a piece of this as well. Stuart's got to put some work in to get around the 992. The rest of the guys go with him. Rob Sharp decides to back out of that one, doesn't take the risk this time round. He's got Paul Goffin trying to close in on him now. And look how quickly these battle packs are changing. It's going from 5 cars to 6 cars to 2 cars because they just get split up by these 992 GT3 machines. It's still Fausto Pinto leading in the AM class, 2.7 seconds to Oliver Carwadine, then Heinz Mayer, Danny Jones and Alex Johns on his way to a 5th place at the minute, but still 25 minutes and change left to go in this race. Nearly contact between Kershaw and Byron Crawford, but Pinto's colourful 992 still at the forefront of the field, and to be fair, he's got a really good spot here for the 963s to go past. He's going to lose a few of them there.
Yeah, that's the ideal scenario. That's where, of course, the pace differential is quicker. It is biggest is when they're, of course, just putting their foot down. They can blast past easy as you'd like. Pinto, then, of course, that's great for his lead. He's been able to add a second onto it ahead of Carwadine in second. And he's just playing this very nicely indeed, trying to be as predictable as possible, stay on his racing lines, and just allow the 963s to find their own way past. Also with that, as we say, he has got fairly fortunate with the timing because he's not been caught by a big chunk of traffic through the tight and twisty stuff where he really is just a passenger to everyone else around them. Flash the headlights as well, just more of a warning just to say to the 101 that he's coming through, and there we go. That is how it gets done. Of course, it ebbs and it flows, but overall, I think Pinto did quite well off through that phase of traffic.
Yeah, this is the thing. It goes both ways, doesn't it? Like you say, the drivers being lapped can often be caught in a fortunate position compared to the cars that are catching them, where they sometimes see it as, oh no, please don't, we don't want to get them at this point of the circuit. It's still Johnny Cullen leading, 7.4 seconds now to Rob Miller. Christian Saruta and Lewis Archer are the only 2 drivers that have pitted in the 963s, and Lewis Archer was more of a forced hand pit stop because of the damage that he had. But Johnny Cullen leading the way very considerably. He's had a fantastic time getting through the traffic. No one battling away with him. We look here at, I believe it's Alex Johns in 5th place chasing down Danny Jones. It's not, I do apologise. It's Alex Owen chasing down Ryan Penny at the moment. This is car number 16, 9th position for him. And Drew Fletcher is down in 14th in class now after his off earlier on. He's been into the pits since then. So that's going to have harmed his race, and to be fair, it's all down to championship points now, because second in the championship is Amrik Sashdev, who's only actually, 3-4 places ahead of Drew Fletcher. Oliver Carwadine is the next one, and he's up in second. So Another twist in the tail to the AM Championship here, Zach, but that's why we love it. You never know what you're going to get.
Exactly. But the good thing is, of course, for Drew Fletcher, he's not finished lower than 4th this season, which means that even if he stays where he is, because of the drop scores, he effectively finishes 4th in this race because he gets that 4th place back as such. So, worst case scenario, it's a P4. He's not losing that many points relative to those around him. This is a very close battle here. That's, of course, Christian Chiarita trying to move his way past Paul Goffin. Goffin, of course, the number 7 who was involved in that mighty incident with, of course, Drew Fletcher a little bit earlier on. He's out of the pit lane looking hungry as ever and trying to get whatever he can out of this race.
Yeah, you've got to take each of the little wins now. As very close stuff between Goffin and Chiarita. Christian tries to swing the car around the outside. You do often see people make the move there because of the fact that you carry that extra momentum. You've got a much wider open line to get on the throttle, especially in cars like this as well, that they do push forwards a little bit when you get on the throttle. James Cummings down the inside of Stuart Clark there into the chicane. Rob Sharp, a spectator for that one. Just up the road, Stephen Kershaw just in front of, I believe, Byron Crawford it is, with the purple highlights on the machine. This is Ralph Mayer and Alistair Hatcher right with each other on the circuit. Both fans of triple digits and very large car numbers, as they would be being Porsche owners. But we have a close battle on our hands here, both with very lovely liveries as well. Alistair Hatcher has been one of those drivers that we've often seen near the front of the field. He had a really bad time at Spa, though. Couldn't quite get on with how the car was behaving. He's going to want to gain a few more places and make up for that here. Looks down the inside of Ralph Mayer. Decides against it in the end. He's going to try and set him up for a run on the exit. Looks like he gets a very good one as well, actually. Goes to duck to the left-hand side. That'll give him the inside for turn 1, but it'll be the outside for turn 2. You've really got to commit to one or the other, haven't you, on the way down into turn 1 here, Zach? It's not one of those easy places to overtake because of how it ebbs and flows.
Yeah, I mean, both can work, inside or outside going into the first braking zone. It's all about the sort of the relative position to the car next to you. If you're more ahead on the outside or more ahead on the inside, that's obviously going to be the more favourable one. But it's all about just being confident, not second-guessing yourself, and using that momentum while you've got it to slingshot yourself either left or right. Also depends on where the car ahead of you is also going, because they also dictate where they can put themselves. But as things stand, Ralph Mayer looking very nice in P6. It's not a difficult track to defend at, provided that you know how to defend. As long as you're quick coming out and quick going into a corner, there's not really much that the driver behind can do.
No, absolutely. It is one of those circuits, like you say, where it's easy to put the car right place, right time because of the narrow nature of the place. So we will see drivers having to really work it to get by. Here is Roxy, driven by Alex Johns. This is the battle for 4th place with Danny Jones. Very, very close to one another, but just on the edge of what's fair there, giving each other lots of room. Danny Jones moves over to the left-hand side as quickly as possible. You can see that Ralph Mayer and Alistair Hatcher battle in the background, but Roxy is looking hungry at the moment for an extra position, and, well, not quite sure if she's got the taste for Harry Beaubears, but we'll find out one way or another as Alex brakes for the chicane, and Danny Jones says, nope, I'm going to go into the pits, and a bit of flying formation there as well as Ralph Mayer makes his way into the pit lane. Interesting that they're doing that pretty much bang on the halfway mark of the race here, Zach. They know that with the stationary time that they're going to be in the pits, the good sort of minute or so that they're going to be in the pit lane, they can definitely make it to the end as race leader Johnny Cullen and Rob Miller both come into the pits.
Yeah, easiest way to do it is just to do it on the halfway point. Save yourself the bigger headache. Interesting will be to see whether these guys head themselves onto the jacks. We saw a couple of people do it. There is Cullen going up. Of course, they can fuel up and take tyres at the same time. Question is, though, because it's a shorter fuel refueling stage, you don't have time to do all 4. You can just about get 2 or so in. And with it being, of course, the clockwise circuit, the left-hand side takes a bit more of a brunt. So maybe that's what they're going to change. Back off the jacks, and Cullen is good till the end of the race. Looked very, very good through the first run of traffic, has looked very good since the start of this race, and he'll be looking, of course, to maximise his potential. Christian Chiarita, though, is leading, although I don't know if he's going to get to the end.
Yeah, it was a very, very early stop, wasn't it, by Chiarita? Maybe he knows that he's got to do a 2-stop and he's just pushing like mad, and maybe these guys now in the later stint will sort of lose a bit of time by trying to save fuel. Not quite sure. Because they've done that halfway mark, I don't imagine that it'll be an easy ride for them. Or they might have been fuel saving before now, and you know, that's how they've got to that point. I don't know. But that's one of the beauties of it. We don't always know, as Chiarita tries to commit to the chicane in lapping Danny Jones and overdoes it. Goes over the grass, and now he's got to get back on the horse and just crack on here and keep his head in the game. I think he got a slowdown penalty for that as well. He definitely has, because he's not been into there at full chat. So another knock for Christian Ceruta's confidence. I think, to be fair as well, based on the damage that he got from that earlier incident, the time he lost from that, it's not going to be a case of outdoing the guys behind and winning the race. It's just going to be damage limitation now.
100%. Yeah, it's going to be taking what you can get out of this race. He's had too many issues compared to the standard of that pro field to go and win it. If he does, fair play to him. But I don't think that's going to be the case. If he can aim maybe for a healthy 6th, 7th, maybe even a top 5 at a stretch, that would be very, very good. But even then, that's going to be a bit of a stretch. His pace has been amazing. A little bit of misfortune, of course, that mistake that we saw on the last lap. It's just knock after knock to his confidence. And that mental pressure can, to an extent, it very much is a powerful thing. And if you're one of those drivers that allows it to get to you and sort of seep into the cracks in your defenses, it will just start to crumble you from inside out. And then it just snowballs from one thing to another. You have a mistake, your tires are overheated, then you're more frustrated. And then, of course, you make a mistake because your tires are overheated. Then, obviously, all things roll into one. Not only that, but the pressure of the championship and positions and the expectations, and then having that incident earlier on. It's a lot to cope with. But if he wants any chance, he just needs to, shrug it off and start this race or restart this race mentally from this point and see what he can do with 17 minutes left to go.
Yeah, you have to treat it as a clean slate, don't you? And just be like, right, it's like when you set a scales to 0 again. You just go, right, this is where we're at to begin with. Let's see how we can sort of balance it either way to make up for it. Fausto Pinto into the pits, up on the jacks. Importantly, Oliver Carwadine is not up on the jacks as he comes to a stop. There was nothing between the two of them as they came in. Looks like Fausto Pinto might actually be out of the pits before him, as look at that, they pretty much leave identically. But Pinto is going to have fresh rubber. Now, we're not sure whether he's done all 4 tyres there or whether he's just done 2. We'll have to see what the performance is like for the later part of the race, but Carwadine is certainly caught up there. The gap as they leave the pits is 0.3 of a second. Third place in class is still Heinz Mayer. Drew Fletcher up to 4th, but is he going to be able to get to the end as, once again, traffic becomes a factor? Johnny Cullen there going by, and he will now overtake class leader Fausto Pinto.
I think Carwadine has definitely done the right thing here in taking that gamble is to not take tyres. Obviously, these tyres have only done, 25 minutes? Is that a lot? Is that significant wear? Have they fallen off a cliff? No, they'll still have some decent pace in them. Not only that, he's reclosed the gap. He's now firmly in the rearview mirror of Fausto Pinto, who even in his own mind has got the quicker pace, the quicker tyres, as all that gets very close. Chris Byram on the inside of Roxy, that's the 15, of course, of Alex Johns. A bit of contact there, but no harm, no foul, just a little bit of rubbing and racing as they exit. Now, of course, he's sandwiched in between the pair of them, Roxy and Rexy, both behind and ahead. But on board with Carwadine, like I was saying, he's in the rearview mirror, he's playing on that pressure with Pinto, he's in the slipstream as well. Obviously, that's going to help him down this back straight. Anything goes wrong with traffic, and Carwadine is immediately there to attack. I think he's firmly done the right thing in taking a risk, because there was no way he was going to beat him on a level playing field.
No, absolutely. You've got to just take each and every lap as it comes, and you've got to be realistic about it as well over the course of these races. There's so many angles to them when you've got to think about strategy and pit stops. People could be doing something different to you in these races and you won't know it. It's something that I'm sure we both compare from the real world of commentary to sim racing, is that in the real world, when they're in the pits, you can physically see what they're doing and you can see whether they're fueling the car, which tyres they're putting on. In the sim, it just sort of floats there for a second. We've got no idea, no indicator from any of the software. We've just got to speculate more. It's one of the things that's actually more difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You have less information, which is interesting because there's pros and there's cons, isn't there? Sim racing is great because there is a lot of information that it gives you in some ways, not so much in others, and a lot of it is a guessing game. Thankfully, for the most part, my real-life commentary has been fairly tame as the 78 inside. There's contact, and around they go. Chris Byram into the same part of the track that he made contact with Roxy this time last lap as well, and around he goes. Easy as that. Slight tap, and with how sensitive these cars are, he's gone round.
Yeah, it's interesting with the later iterations of iRacing's damage model as well. It's never the car that's sort of on the outside or receiving the hit that is the one that's affected by the physics. It's become a really strange sort of phenomena of iRacing of late. Oh my goodness me, that's a phenomena in itself, Chris. Goodness me, over the grass on the left-hand side, past Drew Fletcher and I believe Heinz Mayer. One of the two Mayers. Yes, it's the 222 of Heinz Mayer. right together as they come out of the hairpin. But yeah, we've seen it a few times before where it's the car that's behind or the car that's down the inside bouncing off the other one rather than spitting the other car off the circuit, and it's been a very big change to iRacing's damage system that's caused that. And it's usually a set of physics or an outcome that we often attribute to the likes of R Factor 2 or a set of Corsa Competizione, where the sort of inside car is the one that bounces off. And to be fair, I thought iRacing always had it right in the way that it works, but clearly something's changed, and now it just works in a different way, which is a shame from where I stand, but at the end of the day, it's just how the sim is, and we accept it and we move on.
Yeah, for the most part, it does the job well. I mean, there's going to be drawbacks and pros to sims comparatively. No sim is going to get it all 100% right, but it's interesting that it changed as such and took a step back. But nonetheless, as we see, of course, James Cummings on the back of Stuart Clark. That's running his way through the first sector. Slight look, but not really sure as to what he was expecting there. But we've already nearly killed half an hour of this race. No idea where all of that time has gone. It has gone very, very quickly indeed. Look at that line difference, though, going into that, I suppose it's the third chicane of the circuit. There's just so many here. He's worked his way, and he took he turned a little bit earlier, carried a bit more speed through, and actually got the exit to close on to the back of Stuart Clark. I think James Cummings could have some decent pace to maybe carve his way a bit higher up in the top 10.
Yeah, definitely. Cummings has been one of the sort of most consistent drivers since day one in this championship, regardless of what car we've been racing in as well. Whether we started out in the 991 Porsche Cup car, they've been out in the GTE cars, they've been in the GT3s, now here in the 963s, and even in the 992 Cup cars as well. James Cummings has always been there. He is a very good all-round driver, and he's always got the pace. I think he's just having a bit of a misfortune in this race with that spin that he had earlier that's knocked him down. He's going to be hoping to make up for it in the later stages of the race. But yeah, like you say, not a clue where time has gone. They do say time flies when you're having fun. It's been a lively and busy race here at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, and with 11 and a quarter minutes left to go, there's still plenty to play for.
Yeah, you cannot feel safe or feel disheartened until you cross the checkered flag, because that is well, even then, that's not the be-all and end-all of a race, but that's probably as close you're going to get in terms of actually feeling the adrenaline. You cannot give up until the race is done and dusted. Things will still change. There's the uncertainty, the suspension, all the way through of anticipation throughout a race. Anything can go wrong at any time. It really is indiscriminate. It doesn't care who you are, how quick you are, what your championship position is. Something will go wrong to you at some point in a season, and it could well be in the next 10.5 minutes. Christian Girouta works his way down pit lane for his second and presumably final stop. It definitely will be in terms of planned ones at the very least. The interesting thing will be, where does he come out? It will be a short stationary time because he only needs 10 minutes of fuel, but of course he does take the penalty of driving through the pit lane in of itself. The good thing is, I think his pace has offset some of that time. I think he could still be in a decent position come the race end.
Yeah, there's drivers now that are just going to, again, we mentioned speculation before. There are drivers that are going to be speculating on who's going to come out of the pits and where, and what other strategies people are going to be on, because not only us up here in the commentary box can't really judge what they're doing, but when you're a driver on the track that doesn't even get to see the pit stops that other people are doing, then it's even more speculation from their standpoint, and so many question marks going through your head, especially when you're trying to do your own maths for the race as well. It can be a real pain in the backside, but that's what keeps it exciting. And we look forward to how this one pans out in the end. Alex Johns holding on to 5th position at the moment from previous AM champion Ryan Penny. We know Ryan's got fantastic pace. Alex, a newcomer to the series, but doing well at the moment. Ryan in car 99 has won many a race in the AM class before and wants to get inside that top 5, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's going to be eyeing it up. Of course, less than 10 minutes to go, but hopefully plenty of opportunities for him to go and get it. Boasted success before, and wants to improve on that. I mean, P5, P6, only a couple points swing in it, but it just sounds better to say you finish inside the top 5. So both for Johns and for Penny, they're going to be wanting to go for the top 5. No one cares. I finished top 6. Well, it doesn't have the same ring to it as a top 5 does. So Penny's going to be gearing on for that, looking very menacing, but of course has to topple the very mighty dinosaur of Alex Johns just ahead. And, well, that time, though, that's not ticking down any slower. With each lap that goes by, with each minute that ticks down, is one less opportunity for him to find a way through.
Definitely is, and to be fair, when you are a driver trying to make a move, the timer ticks down so much quicker than you ever see it in a race. And look at Lewis Archer there, very opportunistic stuff, although I do think he actually mucked it up on the exit, unfortunately. He looked like he threw it up the inside of the lap traffic. He did get through, but it looked like he was going to close right up on James Cummings. I think he's had to back out of it as to not overdo it in the chicane and get himself a slowdown or damage on the wall of champions. And you can see, yeah, there's multiple car lengths between himself and the cars behind. As we now have Drew Fletcher back in the pits, so he wasn't able to make it to the end, unfortunately. Big shame after his incident earlier on. It was just innocent stuff, wasn't it, Zach? He was just trying to get out of the way, and it was that miscommunication, the difference in speed. Cummings again losing the back of the car. Very easily done on the throttle. Lovely styled out recovery, but he's going to be fuming with himself for that one. Yeah, that is not the way you want to see hopes of an extra position go down the drain. He's going to be hopeful there's no damage. I think the front right fender has had a little bit of a knock. I think all in all, though, seems fine. The issue is going to be, is his geometry okay? The alignment of the toe and the camber, is that okay? We'll ride on board with him then. Obviously through the left, then you kink your way right. You're then braking pretty much as soon as the car is straight with the outwash as well. And of course, you're accelerating and turning, gets too close to the rear end in second gear, and the revs just climb and climb and climb. Rears go, and around he goes. Yeah, it's one of those prime examples of what we were saying before, wasn't it? That this car is on absolute rails until it's not. And then that was one of those moments. It breaks away so quickly. And when you're on the power, with the amount of power they've got, as soon as you've not got that aerodynamic grip forcing you into the road, then it will just spin around on you so easily. They weigh about as much as a keyboard, these cars, so it's certainly easy to loop them when they start spinning up the rears. What have you got? It's a Roccat Vulcan, and it's very, very heavy. Oh no, Drew Fletcher and Heinz Mayer make contact into the hairpin. Or is it Ralph Mayer? No, it's Ralph Mayer. I do apologise. The 990 machine of Ralph. We saw Drew fighting with Heinz earlier on, so I do apologise. But yeah, he's hit the other brother now as he went down the inside. I don't think Ralph wanted to give that one up. He went all the way over to the right. Yeah, I don't think there was any reason for Ralph to still come across like that there. He still wanted to make the apex. Drew wanted to keep his nose down the inside, and he was obviously trying to be a bit more forceful in his recovery, but I think Ralph closed the door a little bit too early there. Yeah, I mean, at this point for Fletcher, of course, it is just send it. At this point, it's either, I mean, realistically, he's going to be taking his drop week anyway. He just wants to make sure it's as good a drop week as possible in case something else befalls him later on in the season, that he's got at least something else to fall back on should it go wrong. But for him, it's just making as many moves as possible. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, he committed, he was alongside, but going into a hairpin like that, 180 degrees, it is just that awkward pinch point at that first apex that is, yeah. I mean, it can go either way. Yeah. Yeah, racing incident, I put it down as there was definitely more both drivers could have done. Overall, very avoidable. But hopefully, we've got a nice battle here. Alistair Hatcher still versus Ryan Penny, who's still on the back of Alex John. So 3-0 fight for fourth with 5 minutes left to go. There's only a few people that will know what I mean when I tell them that now that Drew's on the recovery, he's going to turn the cost index up on the rest of this flight. But basically, we do have these drivers fighting away in front of him, and it could all still change there as well. You never know if any of these guys might have a little incident, maybe just go for a cheeky look down the inside, cause a bit of contact, and you never know who's going to ruin whose race at any point. In any form of motorsport, people can be pushy. Christian Tsuruta, by the way, has got ahead of this man, Chris Byram, who is in the... well, it's the Peugeot 9X8 replica of the Porsche 963 by the look of it. That is not a car that's behaving itself, and Chris Byram has had a big drama and it is crabbing like mad. I'd be careful overtaking Rexy there down the straight, just in case it snaps away. We look here at Stuart Clark and Lewis Archer. Lewis recovering from earlier on as well. He's back down the inside. Gorgeous liveried machine as well for Lewis Archer, and a fantastic move. Good respect by Stuart Clark there to leave the room on the exit, but Lewis is through and breaks away by a few car lengths. Feisty stuff. Yeah, nicely done though. Of course, pretty textbook stuff. Down the inside, around he goes, and through. Chris Byram, of course, understandably, in the pit lane. A shame so close to the finish, because there's not really much he can do in terms of a recovery. But yeah, great stuff here from Lewis Archer to carve his way back through. Just got to be careful not to let it get to his head too much, because mistakes can still happen. Fortunately, though, the rear wing back on the car and Byron back out onto circuit will, of course, be very close. Can see that's, of course, James coming in that orange car back there battling for P10. So Byron's going to come out right in the midst of this, I think. Or actually, no. He's got away with it. He's got away with it. Nicely done. So he should still be on for, what's this, P9? Yeah, still inside the top 10 at least. And again, damage limitation when it comes to the points. Not that he's any further away from the wall than we've seen him before. He was right up against it there. Stephen Haley currently on for a podium finish. He's chasing down Mark Baxter-Jones for second position in the 11/10ths machine. They've just made their way past car number 15, Alex Johns, who's running 4th in the AM class. He's got company as well from Ryan Penny and Alistair Hatcher, who we were looking at a minute ago. Christian Zaruta still there in the background as well. There's 3 minutes left of this race here, Zach. Johnny Cullen definitely onto a winner unless he runs out of fuel near the end. But the rest of the guys, well, it's all still up in the air. No idea who's going to finish where here.
Yeah, all is fair game at this point. And, well, Baxter-Jones, of course, he's going to be hoping that Cullen has some issues, but I think his priorities lie with keeping Stephen Haley at bay, who is going to have a bit of a look to the outside of T1, just putting Baxter-Jones under pressure, forcing him onto a defensive line. I'd say we've got just about 3 laps to go, so 2 at the line for Johnny Cullen, and then of course for these guys in behind as well. But this battle is heating up. Christian Zaruta, if these two continue to battle, a podium is not out of the question.
No, absolutely not, and Christian's got the pace and the consistency to do it. It's just that incident earlier on that's upset his rhythm, so we'll have to see what he can do about matching these guys. He'll be fired up now as well, Will Christian. He's got real world racing experience as well, so he knows to keep a cool head, knows how to control his attitude for the race. And he's a previous champion of the series as well, let's not forget, so he's got that accolade behind him, and you can see that he is really gaining on these boys, actually. Here's Alistair Hatcher right up behind Ryan Penny. This is not a situation Ryan Penny wants to be in, because he wants to go forward and attack Alex Johns at this stage in the Roxy car. However, he's got to do everything with the fact that Alistair Hatcher is right behind him at the forefront of his mind as well, because he is filling the mirrors in that very garish machine.
Yeah, the last thing you want is to be sandwiched between 2 cars.
Like that.
Not literally. Thankfully, everyone was able to get through nicely. Wow. Penny actually has got a good run on Alex Johns going into this final chicane. We are ticking down towards the final couple of laps, though, so it is going to potentially be now or never. The 15 of Johns goes defensive, but brings it back to the middle, and that is going to invite Penny to maybe go down the inside. Oh, my goodness me. And this could well give Hatcher the backwards momentum run he needs to get them both.
Yeah, Ryan Penny flicks all the way over to the left. Alistair Hatcher says, thank you very much, boys. I will take that all day. And now there's traffic involved as well. This is terrifying stuff. That's Byron Crawford down the inside. Rob Sharp wants a piece of this as well. Oh, Crawford throws it across the inside curb. Alex Johns gets mugged off by Ryan Penny at turn 1, but then he's got the run on the exit of turn 2. They're still side by side, and they've got Rob Sharp down the inside as well. There's not room for all of this, boys. Lewis Archer wants to come through as well. He looks down the inside of Roxy, just manages to take his nose out of that situation, and Ryan Penny loses a car length or 2, and all of a sudden behind Ryan Penny is that Drew Fletcher back in the mix as well. Here's your class leader losing the lead to Oliver Carwadine, and all is kicking off now, Zach.
Yeah, well, you wait long enough for one bus, 2 come back out at once, and this is what we've been treated to in the final moments. This is what happened, of course, in that battle. I think this is the change for the lead. Oh, he has not sent it from that. Oh, he has.
Oh, lovely
Fair
move.
Play.
Great stuff by Carwadine. Awesome commitment. And hats off to Fausto Pinto as well. He didn't make that ridiculously difficult. He didn't cause an issue with it. He didn't drive across the front of him. Oh, goodness me, through the middle. Was that Stuart Clark squeezing past? It's Drew Fletcher and Alex Johns, is it? Yes, it is Alex Johns. I keep getting confused between him and Alex Owen. I just can't avoid it. But Drew Fletcher down the inside and gets through. But wow, Stuart Clark, Rusty's roast. Flipping heck, he's definitely skinned that one. I know it's probably not potatoes at Rusty's roast, but still.
Well, I mean, potatoes are versatile. You can throw them in pretty much anything. Anyway, there's our race leader, Johnny Cullen. 21 seconds clear of this particular battle for P2. It's all heating up for this last lap.
Absolutely is. Mark Baxter-Jones, second position at the moment. Stephen Haley, third. Both of them with Christian Zaruta in the flying bogey in the background as well. Mark Baxter-Jones, we know, is one of the most cool, calm and collected characters in the series. He's won many special events in this community as well, and as part of the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Series. Always a fantastic character to have on circuit. We've had him missing from certain rounds in the past as well. He's a very busy bloke outside of the sim. It's lovely to see him back on form here. Not quite in winning ways, but having a great fight with Stephen Haley and Christian Cerruta behind. There's not much left to go now, though, as Cullen will be rounding the final corner up the road, and Johnny Cullen wins round 4 of the championship in dominant fashion at Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. He didn't have it his own way from the very start of the race, but boy, he made the rest of it work. And what about this now, Zach, as Stephen Haley goes on the offensive?
Yeah, it's his last chance, do or die here. What can Cerruta do about it as well from the background, but into the final chicane for the final time. Baxter Jones, of course, championship leader, secures P2. It's 2, 3 and 4 as they were going into that final chicane. What a race, and so close. But what about the fight for the AMS?
Fausto Pinto's got it back off Oliver Carwadine over the last lap as well. So he's going to finally get it done, is he? As Oliver Carwadine tries to force his hand into the final chicane, Fausto keeps it nice and tidy. And the Portuguese driver takes a race victory in the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Championship, wins the AM class from Carwadine, and Heinz Meyer gets a podium for his troubles as well. Very well fought stuff there for Fausto Pinto. He'll be over the moon with that one. But goodness me, this is how he got it done then. So Carwadine had a go at the chicane just a few laps before. And, oh, wow, I think this is going to be an almighty send here. He's a long way back. Either that or Carwadine makes a mistake. Let's have a look on the exit. Oh, he's just tucked it in beautifully. Whoa, Carwadine was full on the lock there, and they got very lucky that they both got away with that. But Pinto, that was fantastic stuff.
I think what he did was brake late enough, so much so that when, of course, Carwadine was looking in his rearview mirror, he was thinking, oh, that's a car coming at me very, very quickly. And that sort of put him off going into the corner. He went in slightly too deep. And that then actually, it was like a phantom move as such from Pinto. Opened the gap up for him, saw it, a little bit of contact on the exit, but not really much you could do about that. And that took him to victory.
What an excellent race from Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Definitely did not disappoint. But Johnny Cullen, 22 seconds to the good, takes the race victory from Mark Baxter Jones. Stephen Haley was just behind with Christian Cerruta in the mix as well. Hats off to Christian, because what a recovery that was. Byron Crawford finishes in 5th position, a good top 5 for him, ahead of Rob Sharp and Lewis Archer, with James Cummings in 8th. Chris Byron was 9th, and Johnny Elia wraps up the top 10 positions in the Pro class. Then it was Paul Goffin and Stuart Clark with a very, very scary moment near the end of the race. Stephen Kershaw was in 13th with David McRoberts a lap down, and Rob Miller not finishing the race. Fausto Pinto takes the win in the AM class by less than 0.2 of a second over Oliver Carwadine after an intense battle, with Heinz Meyer completing the podium positions. Alistair Hatcher was 4th with Ryan Penny in the top 5. Drew Fletcher recovers to 6th position. Alex Johns was next up ahead of Ralph Mayer with Amrit Sashdev and Andrew Shepherd completing our top 10. Danny Jones was 11th, 1 lap down. So too was Andy Marston, Kim Such and Alex Owen. And Mark Elvin, 5 laps from the end, did not complete the race. But we very quickly jump on to interviewing duties, and we speak to our race winner, Johnny Cullen. Johnny, you must have been over the moon to see the gap at the end of that one there. Did you expect that one to be as easy as it was?
Easy?
Well, you know, you make it look easy, sunshine. You know what it's like.
Oh, I'm absolutely dripping in sweat. Yeah, it was nice to have the comfort zone that I could really let the AM classes relax and do their battle and take some time to take a safe pass. But yeah, it was far from. I mean, I think this is one of the tracks where if you start to drive slow, you're going to end up in a wall. So even if you've got the gap, you've got to push, and you've got to keep pushing, because you don't know when you get stuck in traffic and someone pulls a swift pit something. And
well, that's it. You never know. We were talking about the speculation of strategy earlier on in the broadcast, and it's how you never really know what your other rivals are going to be doing. Even up here in the commentary box, we can never fully understand what people are doing based on the pit stop information we get. So as a driver, you just have to stick to your guns, don't you, in something like this?
Yeah. I was particularly worried when Christian was in front of me for a number of laps, and I kept thinking, like, I'm sure Christian crashed. I'm sure he crashed. Like, how is he in front of me? How is he number 1? He's got to pit this lap. Oh, he hasn't pitted this lap. He's got to pit this lap. He hasn't pitted this lap. Oh.
It was ramping up towards the end, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, but like you say, you've just got to focus on what you're doing and let it sort itself out.
Absolutely. Well, you've closed down the championship gap now to Mark Baxter Jones, who managed a really good comeback drive, actually, to finish in 2nd place. It's sorry, go on.
I was watching the battle behind. I was like, anyone but Mark. Come on, Stephen.
Well, the way I calculate it now, it should be just 1 point in the championship lead. But what a great close battle it's been between all of you guys this season. It's been immense so far, hasn't it, at the halfway point?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Going into this week, when you take the drop week into account, me and Christian were on exactly the same amount of points.
Yeah, it's terrifying, isn't it?
The horrible last season feelings coming up. But yeah.
Well, I was going to say, Johnny, it's still fantastic to see you performing the way you do, and with a 22-second win, it was definitely a mark on the championship. Are you looking forward to the second half?
Yes, yeah. But as I've said before, Le Mans not my favourite track, but let's see. I've had a good result last time and a bad result the time before that, so.
Well, let's hope it doesn't swing back in the other direction. It's consistently good results for you, Johnny. But either way, mate, thank you very much for joining us in the box. Well done on your victory, and we'll see you at Le Mans. Have a fantastic
Thank you very much,
week,
Charles. See you then. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Johnny Cullen, everybody, an absolute star, lovely character to speak to, and what a brilliant victory that was. We're going to move on to another interview now, and what we should do, I think, is potentially speak to our class winner in the AM class. Fausto Pinto joins us in the box. Fausto, first off, well done. A great drive today. You must have been very relieved to get it right at the end there, back off Oliver Cowardine.
It was a very, very hard and very difficult track to race in. It's a difficult track. It went right into the last minute, 2 turns before the end of the race. I was really stressed out because I lead until 2 races to the end, and in the last lap I lost it. It was a great move, and back on the podium.
Absolutely, and like you say, it's a difficult circuit, this place, so it must be a very rewarding place to take a victory in a circumstance like that as well, because what a great battle you had.
Yes, it's a no mistake track. You have to be very, very careful on the curbs. They can send you to the wall really, really fast. And I was trying to get as fast as I could and as safe as I could over them, turn after turn and lap after lap. But it was very, very, very rewarding.
Well, it was certainly a fantastic drive by you, Fausto. Are you excited for the second half of the season now as we move to the first endurance race of the season?
Yes, this win just gave me a boost on my morale. So I'm hoping to do well on the next one.
Well, us too as well, Fausto. It was a fantastic result, mate. Very well done, and we will see you at Le Mans.
Just let me thank my sponsor, Strondo Art Gallery, the best art gallery in Lisbon, and to my team, Calippo Driving, that allows me to race day after day. That's it. Thank you very much.
No problem at all, Fausto. Thank you for your time. See you soon.
See you soon.
Brilliant stuff. Fausto Pinto, a real character and an absolute star of the series. And we speak to another driver that got a podium finish today. Stephen Haley joins us in the box. Stephen, again, I'll say the same thing I've said to the other guys. This is not an easy circuit at all, mate. So it must be quite the relief to get some good points out of tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. I came into this race, I did a lot of practice, and in particular did a lot of practicing with fuel saving, which is not something I'm used to. So to have done this race on one stop and then still be on the podium, I'm really happy, really happy with that.
Are you self-admitting there that you're a bit of a lead foot usually in these cars, Stephen?
Yes.
But that's the thing, though. I mean, even with these 40-minute races, you know, it's not particularly sort of sold to everybody as an endurance race. There is still an endurance sort of aspect to it, isn't there, with worrying about the fuel, worrying about the strategy and putting it all together.
Yeah, I mean, the first few races of the season, I've just kind of gone for it, all out. Bits and bobs out and hope for the best, which, you know, when you've got Christian and Mark and all the other really fast guys kind of doing it all on a one stop, I just quickly decided that I was doing it wrong, so I had to kind of relearn that strategy. So yeah. It was good, but yeah.
And a good battle with Mark Baxter-Jones as well at the end, because we all know it's not easy to follow another one of these cars around any sort of circuit, but especially somewhere like this where Zach and I were discussing it over the course of the broadcast. It's a track that's got a bit of everything because of the slow speed corners, but also the flowing sections as well. This car probably never felt comfortable anywhere, did it?
It wasn't too bad. The sausage curbs on the chicanes were pretty bad. I mean, they were awful. But following Mark towards the end, I knew that he was either really heavily fuel saving or he had damage, because I felt as though I could have had him. But out of the corners, he managed to get that much, got the gas down before I did, and just managed to keep that. For the last lap, I thought, here we go. Hopefully have a go at him into the last chicane, but didn't have enough.
Well, it was still a fantastic effort, Stephen, and we love to see it. Another podium for your troubles, and hopefully we'll see more of the same at Le Mans next time out. Thanks very much.
I hope so. Cheers, Chas.
Cheers, mate. Well, there we go, Zach. Another fantastic week in the championship. Plenty of entertainment. 2 brilliant classes as well. Loads to keep our eyes on. And, well, we look forward to having it all again in 2 weeks' time at Le Mans. But what have you made of your first appearance in the box then for the championship? It's a good little place, isn't it?
Yes, awesome. Thank you, of course, for having me alongside you. It's been a pleasure. Of course, our first time working together.
Yeah.
Too bad. It's all right. We had a good time, I think. Fun race, really good stuff. Of course, 2 weeks' time when they head to Le Mans. Got to be honest, it's not my favourite racing circuit in the world, but I think with these guys and how they race, the slipstream, of course, both in the 992s and in the 963s, should be a good one.
It absolutely should be. Thank you very much, Zach, for jumping in. It's been an absolute pleasure to work together. Thank you, everybody that has been watching this evening here on RaceSpotTV. From the Porsche Club of Great Britain Sim Racing Championship, from me, Chas Draycott, and the wonderful Zach Sweeney, it's goodbye.